Samsung Blue pulls out something different. So we'll see. And to pick some bans.
Yeah, so far the ban for Samsung Blue with the Alistar, it's been banned in 9 out of 10 games Samsung Blue has played, and they banned it every single time themselves. So that's pretty obvious. They're going to keep banning it. It means Samsung White will have extra bans open for them, but they don't have to worry about the Alistar. If they ban Zilean as well now, they keep to the trend of always banning Alistar and Zilean.
Which will give White a lot of versatility in this series. If Blue is set in their ways with their bans, they've actually switched it up a little bit here.
Okay.
They banned Ryze instead of Zilean.
Yeah, and that's a good change because people were talking about Samsung White having the edge in the champ select coming in here because Blue had seemed very predictable in their bans. Zilean is open now.
Yeah.
They have to first pick it and put it on hard because Dade is not a Zilean player.
Not that we know of.
Nope, what we know of. Obviously they had a bit of time to practice.
If we see Blue picking Zilean, it is 90% of the time going to hard though.
And this shows me from the start, Samsung Blue, obviously Zilean is great late game as well, but he is very, very strong in the mid game, especially if you play him in the mid lane, where he has a lot of damage early on. We might see Samsung Blue try and focus a bit more on this mid lane or mid game to try and make sure White doesn't get a big lead early on and just try and snowball out of control.
And there is just so much going into this game of guesswork because White was yet to be challenged. Dandy is a legendary Rengar, but he hasn't had to bring it out at Worlds. Will he save it until this moment? We'll really get to see, maybe even in this first pick and ban phase, whether White was picking the stuff in group stage that they plan to use in semis, or if they've been saving it the whole time, and it looks like they've been saving it.
Seems like a lot has been saved, and they kind of just say, you have a Zilean, but we'll be able to kill more people than you're able to save. What does this give for Spirit now to go through the jungle? He knows Dandy's going to try to find him and make his life a living hell.
Lee Sin is open here for Spirit, his main pick. Also what we normally see from Dandy being logged in, especially if you look back at, again, quarterfinals, group stage. Dandy picked Rengar over Lee Sin.
Wow.
And now we can see Lee Sin and Yasuo coming in for Samsung Blue in the next rotation. They don't have to pick the jungle yet. And that is one of the best combos together, one of the best 2v2 combos, Lee Sin and Yasuo.
And I mean, Acorn's Kale was absolutely out of this world when he played it in Champions. It's been nerfed a little bit, so we haven't seen as much dominance, but as far as Kale players at World, Acorn's got to be the best.
And notice what you have already. You have Kale's ulti and Zilean's ulti. So whatever target Samsung White is jumping, double ultis to save him. And because you already have the Yasuo locked in, you can go Corki as an AD carry now, which is what Dev loves, because you don't want to have too much physical, you don't want to have too much magic. That's why Corki fits in really well with a physical mid laner. And also Lee Sin is your last pick, and then Samsung Blue has an absolutely insane lineup.
And I see a few things coming back at them from Samsung White here, however. Whenever I see a Zilean on the enemy team, I like the opponent to pick a lot of AoE damage. Because Zilean, while he is good at preventing assassinations, is very poor against large amounts of damage in very chaotic team fights, because it doesn't matter if you resurrect one person when your whole team is dying. With Jace and Twitch locked in here from Samsung White, it's going to make Zilean's life a little bit harder.
It really increases that potential to just zero somebody out immediately from out of the blue. No pun intended. We'll see the Janna being picked up here by Imp. A little more safety for Looper, as we were talking about. Dade, so far, he's got nobody else to help him on that Yasuo ult. So what is Blue going to put into their composition?
I mean, already, these team compositions are so divergent from what we've already seen. We've talked about these teams having a dominant road so far into the semifinals. 20-3 is their combined record when we look at these two teams. And now that they're finally against each other, they're breaking everything out.
Whoa!
Everything!
No way!
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Varus for more Chain CC, hopeful initiation, maybe trying to bypass that Janna pick. I'm a little bit blown away that we see it at this juncture.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, especially because Twitch can one-on-one a Varus really easily once he gets Blade completed. But you already have Kale and Zilean to protect your AD carry, so you can pick an immobile AD carry and resurrect him in these fights here. But I wasn't expecting this pick. Maybe it's to counter the Jace poke a little bit. You have the Varus now with the long-range poke himself. And if anyone gets too close, if Rengar jumps in, what you can do is use the Varus ultimate to shoot on the team trying to follow and lock them down, and then just solo out the Rengar.
What is going on here?
Game 1 mind games, if you will, gentlemen. If one of these teams wins with this composition, I'm sure it could put the other one on edge just a little bit. Not seeing this, knowing that those picks are something that could come out huge here. This is crazy.
Rip, how much were they hiding from us? Because we did extensive preparation on these picks and bans, making an A class, B class, C class for the champions we pick. Nowhere in there was there a Varus or an Akali for either of these teams, but here they are at semis at Worlds.
Yeah, really surprised. We do see the teams stick to their normal kind of play style. We have like the full team fight come from Samsung Blue, who are extremely strong in team fights.
Yes.
And you have so much pick potential, like skirmish potential from Samsung White. I mean, Akali, you have the Rengar, even Jace himself can one-on-one people here. So you have such a crazy skirmish pick come from Samsung White, and so much damage as well coming out just in a matter of a few seconds.
So Blue with the Save Your Life composition, Kale Zillion in there trying to make sure Dade can make the plays and have Deft on the wings, become that late game carry, hopefully. And we just see the make your life miserable attack and poke composition from White. This is going to be absolutely amazing. We'll be checking in throughout the series to see who the fans think will be coming out ahead. So keep your real-time reactions too at LOL Esports. Use the hashtag SSBWin or SSWWin. We'll be checking that as we go throughout the game. This one is going to be amazing right out of the gate, I believe. We'll see if there's even swaps to be had. These guys are about to write a new story for us here in semifinals.
And at this point, we just kind of have to reset our mind to what actually defines this matchup. Because so much of what these teams have done at Worlds thus far gets thrown out the window. However, the tendencies will remain somewhat true. If we look at the group stage, I'm going to look at Acorn in particular, because so much was made about how much damage Deft dealt and what a hyper carry he was, specifically on Twitch.
Right.
That 44% of his team's damage that he did in the group stages. In the semifinals, that fell substantially. Acorn actually did 26% of his team's damage as a top laner because they swapped their farm priorities. They kind of turned Acorn into a carry with some rumble games. Now with Varus on Deft, that puts him in a much more supportive role from the AD carry position and puts a lot more pressure on Acorn to step up in this series. So I'm actually not expecting a lane swap unless it's initiated by White.
A lot more poke focus from Deft here. He is normally known as one of the best AD carries in terms of positioning and skill shots, which obviously is going to be very important.
He's got a lot of skill shots here.
There's a lot of skill shots to work with. So in that case, it doesn't surprise me. He's the guy picking it up. Imb is normally the more straightforward AD carry, who's also wants to make these big plays on a champion like Twitch.
Making those big plays. He feels like he's kind of lost that title as best ADC to Deft so far. Even with 2 pentakills in the tournament, he still feels like he can do better. So we'll see if he can get into that role without finding the overconfidence of last year that kind of put him on the back foot.
Yeah, and there's so much on the line in this matchup. I mean, Samsung White twice now been knocked out of OGN by Samsung Blue, denied the final, denied the potential of getting the title. Imagine if they lose here again in the World Finals, or sorry, in the World Championship.
Right.
Getting denied going into the World Finals.
Especially after picking Akali, right? Who expected Looper to play Akali? He's known as such a laid-back and passive top laner. The fact that he's breaking out Akali here against a Kale Zillion, a lot of anti-assassination tools. However, it's still a pretty squishy team, so he has some benefits of the Akali and some dangers of the Akali. A little bit of confusion here as far as the lane matchups initially go. Surprisingly, Deft and Hard show up in the top lane, and right away, Looper leaves.
Yeah, and with these comps here, as you just mentioned before, it's going to be a lot about Samsung White getting the skirmish going in terms of the team fighting, because if they all pile on to the same target, you have the Zillion, you have the Kale, and that's going to mean Samsung Blue is
early invade here.
So they have to split it up here. Let's see what happens. Samsung Blue want to try and get 3 buffs, but a lot of people from Samsung White, they should be able to secure it. Even Porn can join in.
This has been such a quick reaction by Mata to make it back up here. The fact that they had their AD carry support bottom and were still able to go up and defend Dandy is huge.
Yeah, but because there's so many people from Samsung White on the top side of the map, Acorn could now teleport down bottom side. Imb is left alone. He's only level 2 and he was fast pushing. Normally, if you want to rotate your members around the map, you freeze the bottom lane or the top lane, wherever you have your lane swap, and your AD carry just sits back and can zone the enemy top laner. This time around, he pushed it, opened up for Acorn to come down and get some good farm.
Well, we saw one way to get under Blue's skin was to take chances in the early game. Less preparation and more just gung-ho was one way to get under their skin. Right now, everything's kind of on the board, and both teams know what is to be played out. But we see White actually going for a bit of that invade. No prep wards, not a lot here as they go in.
Well, I think mainly they're trying to shut down Acorn because he was able to pick up a little bit of that farm in the bottom lane, and they want to make sure that Acorn can never get substantially stronger than Looper, otherwise Looper will have nowhere to farm on Akali. A lane swap to Akali that falls behind is beyond useless.
Yeah, and they also want to force Samsung Blue to go to the top side of the map with Acorn, with all the members, so Dragon suddenly opens up for Samsung White because they're on the bottom side. Let's see what happens in mid lane here. Spirit is wise enough to not chase into the bush with no wards.
Very safe play from Pawn. Always had trouble in lane against Dade, and Spirit wants to make sure that happens again. Can Pawn bring himself above that mid lane kind of mental block?
At this point, it's so hard for anyone to get aggressive in the mid lane just because of how much roaming is happening back and forth.
Yeah.
And the emphasis put on AD carry farm denial or top lane farm denial, I think that's actually the main thing that these teams are focusing on. But because the roam is a risk, the mid laners can't really do anything but sit back and farm. However, Pawn is a guy who loves trying to get solo kills.
Exhaust already out. Dade's going to be able to get
Are you
extra
kidding?
damage. Flash is out of the lab. Steal Q. Oh, man. Get some flow up. That Ignite will not take him down, but we got Summoners down in mid, and that Flash is also down for Pawn. That could be big.
When I interviewed Pawn, the one thing he kept mentioning over and over was solo killing people. Solo killed Dirksen, how he solo killed Faker. I'm sure he would have loved to solo kill Dade there, but again, it was in a very Pawn style of way. He actually just countered the enemy's aggression and almost turned it around there with Jace.
There's that roam still from Mata. Dandy is in the pocket there on the backside. If anything else goes crazy, he will return to his jungle. Not to find too much. It's been taken away right now as the game, even all 5 minutes in, and both teams have tried a little trickery from both sides of the map. You see that Avarice Blade coming up for Dade in the mid lane, keeping sure that gold is up for himself on a quick back of that Summoner trade.
And we see actually the ward here from Samsung Blue. I really like it inside the Dragon Pit because they knew there was a pink ward outside which couldn't spot it. And therefore they could actually go to the top side of the map, start their recalls here, and knowing Samsung White didn't actually start the Dragon yet. Because it's all about the Dragon right now for Samsung White. If Samsung Blue suddenly shows up 4 members on the top side, they might go for it anyway. Now they do get the pink.
They are assuming here that Zilean went into the top lane. Honestly, the way these teams are playing right now, it's almost like they just turned it up a notch. From every game we've seen in the group stage to now, they seem to be playing faster, they seem to be playing crazier, more unpredictable is actually the most resounding thing I'm seeing here. They're making a lot of moves that they just haven't made throughout this entire World Championship in the first game against each other.
And I like this move by Samsung Blue. They know the Dragon is going to go down because they're on the top side here. Now they want to finish this lane swap. Fast push the tower because compare top laners at the moment. Acorn is so far ahead because he got the farm in bottom lane and he's been doing the jungle camps while Looper now had to do the Dragon as well. So this is a time where you want to swap back to the one-on-one and let Acorn with the lead just bully out the Akali.
Well, he is going to be a big factor here if he can't bully out that Akali. We know that Looper can make teleport plays, and that would be even more dangerous if he can continue to assassinate and not just be a mayhem tank as he gets in the fight. Dandy being found out here. Looks like they're going to give him a little bit of trouble. You can even see Dade hovering the top side of his mid as he still has Pawn pushed back to the turret. Top and bottom turrets about to fall for both sides. And that is still going to give the lead a bit to White if they take that one down after it kills all the minions.
It is actually very impressive by White here, being the team without Zilean, yet still pulling a few of the early game advantages, as well as being the team with Twitch. One of the dangers we've seen with Blue is they have a tendency to fall behind. Almost cost them against Cloud.
Whoa! Chain of corruption flash from Death. Blue trying to make the early game plays.
It whiffed without a single summoner spell burn.
I think Acorn actually showed himself by mistake beforehand, so Samsung White knew they were around the mid lane and therefore could play very safe, stay close to the tower here and actually avoid dying, at least avoid having to use the flash he didn't actually have. So the idea was there. Sadly, Acorn actually showed himself a bit too early beforehand.
So much of ganking, especially between these two teams, is avoiding tells. Whether it's between the mid lane or whether it's a top laner playing the lane too passively while there's a gank bottom, these guys pay so much attention to everything around them. That small movement there by Acorn ended up costing Def to kill, basically.
And they're so good at setting up these minion waves as well. Look at the top lane here. The wave was pushing down towards Samsung Blue after they killed the tower. They reset the minion wave, got slow pushing towards themselves, so Lubu could get up, get 6 minions, and now look at all these minions here for Acorn joining in. So he's gonna be so far ahead just because Samsung Blue set it up so well after killing the tower and getting him this big wave here. And Looper so far, and this Akali has been shut down.
A lot of communication pings going around to make sure they do not just walk through these wards. That blue going over to Deft, so he can continuously use piercing arrows, possibly keep this mid lane pushed. It's going to be ADs in the mid lane now, as a lot of roaming in the early game and those turrets down have kind of just brought these teams to do something completely different than what they had planned.
The Samsung Blue tried to get Dade away from this Jace in the lane, who was bullying him quite a bit. We just constantly poke him here by sending him bottom lane. But obviously Samsung White instantly responds, go down, send Jace to the bottom lane himself.
Something we got to note is they are sister teams, but they are not identical sister teams. Very much different in their styles of play. And it's something that we're seeing here, very much so, even more different coming into this game.
These teams have been very public about saying that they are enemies of one another.
Yeah.
When group stage started in Taiwan, before that was the last time that blue and white scrimmed each other, because they've been expecting to face each other at some point in this World Championship. They know how strong one another are. They've been hiding strategies from each other. They have their own coaches. They're two separate teams in a sense when Worlds is approaching. And we're seeing how much they've been hiding from one another and actually hiding from the rest of the world right now.
So true.
And just the difference again in the picks. We talked about how we have Samsung White who wants to skirmish, who wants to get the picks, and we have Samsung Blue, the late game team fighting gods that they are. So we can see it in the comms here. Also, this top lane, I like the move by Spirit, going up to the top side, helping Akon push out the waves. And if Luba had gone in to take the farm, Spirit could have jumped him and killed him, and then he would pretty much be out of the game. He did play it safe though and stay at his tower.
Well, Pawn's in a perfect position to do a lot of poke harass here. Now about 20 CS up in that mid lane, doing really well.
That is actually a remarkable lead by Pawn over Dade. Someone who, when blue has had their historic success against white, Dade has made it out of many laning phases against Pawn with an advantage, because Pawn wasn't able to apply any shutdown or pressure to him. But in this game in particular, especially with all the gank attempts that blue put into the mid lane onto Pawn, to avoid that and also push Dade back again and again is really impressive. The mid-game spike of Jace, if he hits this, will be very devastating.
Around, like, what do you say, 22, 23 minutes, Tia fully stacked.
I think so.
And suddenly you just become so strong. And it's fun to see how both mid laners actually got, like, comfort picks. Dade is so known for his Yasuo, probably the best Yasuo player in the world, and Jace for Pawn on the other side. One of his main picks as well. One of the few people who actually played it and really made it popular again. We've seen him model up here doing Worlds. Cool played it as well.
Known to make his own plays as well. Pretty much the only one, unless Spirit's there, which he probably will be for the fights, to activate that Yasuo ultimate. So you can see those two sticking together for safety as they clear some wards here. We do have 1 minute on to Dragon. Few prep wards have been placed on the right side here for Samsung White, and defensive wards here for blue.
And this will be the first slightly more controlled Dragon I think that we'll see. White does have the early positioning right here. They need to be able to land a lot of poke down onto blue and really avoid the chain of corruption in this fight. They do have an edge leading into this. Let's see if they pull off a gank before the Dragon.
Oh, here come both. Teleport down. It's going to be right on top of each other. Dade gets what he wants. He is going to be out of the fight, and he also has the intervention on. Pawn almost goes down here, but he gets the brush control. Denies the vision. Oh no, Looper gets going, and that's going to be one for Dandy as well, and White starts things off 2-0.
That's exactly the fight that White wanted to get there. They outnumbered them with the Janna roaming down a little bit earlier. The kill ultimate was mistimed onto Dade, and it reacts perfectly with the spawn of the Dragon. They had the ward control before then, which gave them the advantage in the fight because they knew the numbers advantage, and they turned it into a cute edge.
And you have to respect the Jace pick here early on. There was so much damage coming from him compared to what Dade could do on this Yasuo pick here. In the end, Samsung White, get the Dragon, get the picks. Pretty much perfect. Kali, who was in problems before, got a kill and an assist as well.
And he puts a Cutlass along with that Hextech Revolver in his pocket. It's going to be very big damage upgrade for him. And he's probably going to use that teleport every time it comes up now. We'll see how Samsung White kind of puts that together for the team to keep going. We see a level 9 on Pawn right now, only matched by the level 9 of Deft, who's been farming his face-off. Highest farm in the game, but Pawn is going to be a big problem.
Yeah, and we do have a Blade now completed for him here on Twitch, so he can start looking for fights for the one-on-ones. If he finds Deft right now, he should be able to kill him. Oh, well, now he's on a ward
there by Dade.
Oh, they're picking him.
Do too much to Imp at the moment. I really do feel like blue is in a whole heap of trouble right now. 3,000 down at 13 minutes is unfortunately typical for Samsung Blue. While they do have some comeback history against Samsung White, in Champion Summer there was actually a game where they were down 7,000 gold at 20 minutes and still came back to win. but that is so rare, and White has also improved heavily as a team since then, with Twitch on their side this time, the late game poke of Jace, and the late game assassination potential of Akali.
Yeah.
I don't see the same type of late game comeback happening again. Therefore, Blue needs to play exceedingly well in the next 10 minutes or so to avoid losing control of this match.
I want to agree, but I've seen Samsung White too many times be a bit over-aggressive, especially against Samsung Blue, who always manage to punish them and get back in the game anyway.
True.
So we have to see if they can control themselves, because the late game shotgun has been popping. Here's the assassination onto Def.
Oh, Def could get hit. That is going to be the Zillion ulti, but he can take out Hart as well. This is going to be some
Hart.
big damage. Hart just gives that one up, thinking Def would come up sooner, maybe?
No, what was he doing? I'm not sure if he wanted to try and get in range and exhaust onto MP and just like walk back and forth in the end. He had flash job as well.
That's what we see. Varus is vulnerable to Twitch openings, especially if he doesn't get a huge lead early. The fact they haven't made any plays with that chain of corruption is even more concerning here for Blue. White definitely trying to take a whole bunch of control here. And yes, Deficio, I agree that White has gotten overconfident, but that happens when you just stomp on everyone almost every single game.
100%.
Putting the boot down one more time on this one. Alerted that Dandy is there. Red buff on him as well. Whoever gets tagged is probably going to be tagged for death. Dandy's trying to get out. A great heal coming from Mata to save Dandy. Another jump from Looper as he gets a kill. Can Dade and the rest of the team answer? Is there any rebuttal to these kills?
Whoa.
Not in range for the Oswald. And Flash is out. Somehow he lives. And they're going to take down Spirit as well. Dade throws himself in the pan, and it's way too hot to get out alive.
In between the turrets, Samsung White pulls a 3-for-0, baiting Blue into desperate plays because they know how far they're falling behind. It is just going from bad to worse.
And Looper in this one-on-one he had with Akon in the start, he goes in, forces the ulti, then he has his stealth, he has to sustain already, and just wait for the ulti to disappear, then jump, finish off Akon here, and Samsung White. It looked aggressive, but they were definitely in control. And look at the goal lead. We are 15 minutes in. That is insane.
Plays on plays. Let's see this one again, because it was a long fight considering.
A few things baited Blue into overextending in a sense in this fight. It's the fact that the initial initiation by Samsung White was a little bit sloppy. They missed the bola strike, and they were in between the turrets, which for Blue, honestly, this is their opportunity to come back. This is the only time they could potentially get an edge. But Pawn rotated at the right moment. He arrived at the fight just at the right time. Dade desperately tried to get a kill, but there was a few too many shields, and it just isn't a fairly easy 3-for-0 for White.
Yeah, and just some missed plays as well. Spirit actually tried to kick Flash Imp into the tower, but he didn't manage to do it. Instead, just kicked him away. Therefore, Dade couldn't follow up in time, and in the end, they just ended up going in 1-by-1 and dying. Let's see if Blue can get away.
Pressing.
Yeah, they want to fight again.
They're oh my gosh, that damage coming out of Pawn through the shock blast. They definitely have to back off onto this one. A little bit of safety to be played now. 1.5 minutes on Dragon, and White controls the jungle of Blue right now, which pretty much means they aren't going to get close.
And here's the darndest thing about that Zillion pick. Actually, they don't have any vision control, so they're getting collapsed on.
Faked out teleport. So Looper will have that down.
Yeah, I want to make this point about Zillion once again, though. It's just a tier and a level 7 Zillion. So often, the Zillion pick works because a team has to invest a heavy amount into one kill that is then negated. However, if we look at the builds and champion picks on Samsung Blue right now, everyone is very squishy, and they're taking a whole bunch of AoE damage. So the investment that White has to burn to proc a Chrono Shift or a Zillion ult is very low and highly repeatable for Samsung White. So at the moment, because of this lead and the champion compositions on both sides, the Zillion is actually really ineffective. So Blue's first pick has not worked out well.
No, and that's again why we see Samsung White also in these fights here. They don't like go 5 people and tunnel on one target. They split it up very nicely here because they know they are stronger like one-on-one all across the board here. Can take the small fights and making it very hard for both Akon and Hart to use the ultis effectively.
We talked a little bit about how to shut these teams down. It's really trying to focus Dade or getting Dandy and Mata, which almost seems like a harder task when you have 2 people that can really lead the team quite well. Right now, Pawn being quite a bit of that. As you said, 50% health. The alert onto Def, but they're going for Dade a little bit here. Dandy at least striking fear into his opponent. Spirit way too close onto this one. One last shot, but it looks like he's going to outlive this one, even with the Venom on him. And it is only Imp down. Now Dade falls. It looks like they back off for now, but a lot of continuous pressure in this game.
And that is the setup you can do when you have the Yasuo and Lee Sin together. Lee Sin just goes straight for the AD carry, ults him, and then Yasuo can jump in on it with his ulti, and you can just take him down very fast. Matza wasn't there, or at least didn't save or couldn't save him in time.
Yeah, I still really like the way that White is approaching these team fights. They're trying to bait and switch their point of attack there.
All the time.
Dandy was so far away from the origin point of Imp's Twitch that it would have surprised and outplayed almost every other team in the world, but Blue was quick enough to react and collapse onto Imp. That's why they only got punished in a 1-for-1. However, because of the ridiculous gold lead, they still had enough pressure. That was a pre-dragon fight. Yep. White does that repeatedly every time the dragon is up. Fight before the dragon, so the dragon itself is incontestable, and they pull even farther in.
And it's fun to see how these Samsung teams often use Twitch. It's pretty much a bait. Because you actually are going to be in the front line as the Twitch. You pop out, you use all your cooldowns. You have these 7 seconds where you are probably the best AD carry in the game because you have so much damage with ulti, Ghost Blade, everything. And the enemy team obviously wants to kill you. And when they collapse onto you, well, the remaining 4 members suddenly are in a great position to just punish and kill you.
They create such utter chaos with this composition. Looper throwing down the Shroud to go invisible. Dandy coming out from invisible along with Imp. It's kind of a flashed reaction you have to even get yourself back into the fight. They're always reacting. Very tough.
We're going to have to get an Oracle lens on Samsung Blue if they want to try and kill Looper here. You can't keep buying pink wards and place them every single fight.
Right.
Like, that's a lot of gold invested. Rather get the 450 gold on for the Oracle lens.
And the problem is, it's not like Blue has very much gold to invest. They've been heavily denied here. I mean, 1 turret in 20 minutes, starved out of Dragon, relatively low farm numbers across the board. The Pawn versus Dade matchup is getting out of control. And they're really just hoping for catches in any way, shape, or form. But they are 1 step behind White here. And when they walk into a place with wards, they get a shock blast to the face, and they have very little way of recovering.
This could be, Imp getting out of that one beautifully. There's the teleport coming in. He goes right back onto, that's going to be Acorn, but it was one other right before he got to it. Acorn all by himself. They still go in for the fight. 1 down, now 2 down. That's going to be Dade up off the Chrono ship. But Looper wants to fight for himself. He actually draws out an exhaust. They're giving themselves so many follow-up opportunities.
At the end of the day, it's a 3-for-1. You can see how ridiculously competitive these team fights are despite the gold discrepancy, but because of the gold discrepancy is why they're going in Samsung White's favor. It's their ability to pull together in the mid-game and then just go crazy in these mid-game team fights.
Definitely not fight that are happening on the terms of Blue at this point. White is going very hard at everything now with an 10,000 gold lead as they're just about to hit 25. But it is items galore that they have finished so far, and we're going to see Looper trying to build up that Zhonya's now. The Ghost Blade finished up onto Imp, and Red Elixirs as well for Pawn for a little bit of edge on that damage.
Yeah, Samsung White, they want to close out this game with the red potion here. They already have all the wards placed down. If you look at the minimap, it is pretty much all Samsung White at the moment. So they can set up a Baron fairly early on if they want to. Don't start it, just bait it, force Samsung Blue to come in and face check you and take the fight once again, because all you want to do is have them come and fight.
An amazing amount of wards on the map right now for White. 4 counted for Blue across, and that is just so much vision White's able to use to get the fights they want, to poke from the fog of war. And it looks like they're going to be heading up towards that Baron side.
Oh, Spirit recalled on a pink ward. They know he's not going to... No, he's back in base.
Whatever they want. It's made even easier by the fact that Police Pin Steal isn't even a possibility. This is the game for White that just goes completely according to plan. None of the weaknesses are exposed here for Samsung White. They're a team that generally does this to pretty much everyone. They pull ahead by a huge amount of gold by the mid-game and then end it before it gets late. Blue needs to somehow find a better way of extending the game and not getting steamrolled like this. But honestly, no one's been able to prevent White from doing this to them all worlds.
Still trying to put those resources onto Deft as we have seen before. The blue buffs go to him, the red buffs are going to him, and it's the Infinity Edge onto Varus. We don't usually see that used for his poke a lot, so he's got to get close to these fights where he's going to get assassinated, possibly just like this. If dodging out the Q, there is that wind wall, but Dade cannot force himself to pass it. He's got to back off here.
At least he stays alive here, trying to kill him, use Ghost Blade
Having that freedom for White is so scary for Blue, though.
That is one of the reasons Yasuo is a good pick against Twitch, because of the wind wall. You can block most of the ulti here, and Dade managed to stay alive. But Samsung White just needs to go back, 5 members once again. You have so many ways of engaging the fight. You have the Rengar, even the Twitch going in. Oh, be careful.
There it is, a very nice Yasuo all coming in. Dottie's going to fall very fast. Def putting out a bit of damage to take down Imp, but there's so much follow-up now that there's not much they can do. 3 for 1.
White just does so much damage, it is impossible to stop this. This could be an ace.
One on the Heart. Heart goes down. They even throw down the Randuins for the show. It's going to be a dead Zillion when he comes up. That's an ace, and they didn't even need him for it.
And it's just insane how, go back to the start of the game, the Akali lost a lot of farm, was behind.
Yeah.
And then we have the fight in the bottom lane, which goes in favor of Samsung White. The Jace pick really paid off. Akali coming in with all her early game damage. And suddenly, 6-0-7 for Looper.
We need to actually just kind of go back in time here because this game happened so quickly. 23 minutes. And this is honestly what Blue needs to start thinking about right now.
Yeah.
What happened and how do we prevent it from happening again? So much of it, I think, is just around Dandy's movement in the early game. He was unattacked. The lane swapping was wondrous by Samsung White. The way they were playing in between things, completely avoiding points of contention, getting him farmed up, getting Pawn ahead in the mid lane against Dade.
That was one-on-one.
Controlling Dragon. That was one-on-one. I mean, where does Blue actually go from here to try and come back, and if they almost have to completely retool their strategy?
Well, if you want to pick the same comp, you cannot take that early game fight they took. That's why they
Good.
closed. Now they're just getting killed left and right. But the fight they took in the bottom lane was so heavily in favor of Samsung White. If they didn't take the fight, gave up the Dragon, didn't give up any kills, they could have played more passive and tried to sit back and farm, because you have great wave clear on both the Varus and the kill together. Yeah. So you could have played more passive. They didn't want to fight early on.
Yeah, I mean,
that fight one more time.
They kill Imp immediately. However, in exposing themselves, they all die pretty much instantly. Looper Pawn Dandy is just an absurd amount of damage.
And both Kale and Zillion wasn't there with the ulti. That's the only defense they have against all this burst. And also the Akon just goes down without even using ulti.
You can see Hart was saying, use your intervention. I'm going to save that for myself. It doesn't matter in the end. There's just way too much damage, almost nuclear, coming out of Samsung White right now. A lot of movement in the early game, as you guys are saying, just kind of sprung this for Samsung White. The roam of Mata with Dandy. That first kill he got, those were his Moby boots. He was off and running.
They snowballed it so fast. They kept getting the fights. They went top lane between 2 towers.
Yeah.
Won another fight, and suddenly they were 5k gold ahead, and Samsung Blue was just way too far behind. They need to wait such a long time here, and we have a fight again.
One hit. There's the disengage
Here's
from
the flank.
Mata.
Watch Akali from the back.
Dottie's trying to find what he can. Death gets hit up. There's no heal for him. Chain of Corruption did go out, but as soon as Looper is let out of that prison, he is just knocking down the walls and finding more kills. A double for him. Another ace for Samsung White.
It's almost a 20,000 gold lead at 26 minutes. At this point, Blue has absolutely zero chance of winning this game. It's been like that for a while. The easiest ace yet. Dandy basically blew someone up by himself at the start of that fight. It started 3-5. It ended 5-0.
21-3 right now, gentlemen. 26 minutes in, a 20,000 gold lead. Absolutely crazy. Nothing we thought would come out of the board on the board in the first game, but Samsung White is making it a reality. Like you said, Jap, Blue's definitely going to have to think about game 2. A lot of comfort picks across the board for them. I'm not sure why this is happening.
Yeah. Now, at this point here, Samsung Blue, they have to try and get some global gold. They cannot just sit back anymore. Therefore, Samsung White gets a nice engage onto them. Dandy is already tanky. He has the Randuin's open. He's so far ahead. And into something. Then do I manage to jump him? Flash ulti for Mata. Everyone stays alive.
Beautiful.
And this is what happens when you're about 20k gold ahead at 26 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah, even with the lead, though, White's still playing these fights very well and by the book. The exhausts are on Yasuo at just the right time. They're still peeling for Twitch. They're still flanking for the squishy targets on the outside of the fight. White is completely prepared and ready to go here.
Just constantly switching targets. It's beautiful to see the way to do it. Get the ulti, okay, go, next target. And just switch around. And the Janna pick, against Yasuo Lee Sin, against double melee champions, we can say, has really showed during World Championship how strong it can be to save your AD carry.
We see now Pawn, a little bit of extra cash in the bank, putting a Essence Reaver down in his inventory as well, also with the blue buff. Why not?
Yeah, more CDR. He should be around 40% right now with all of his stuff. And so we have seen Blue being slow starters to best of 5 in the past. I mean, their first game against Cloud9 was really slow. They got steamrolled by Cloud9, but this feels a little bit different. It's almost like White is really demoralizing them here. Blue hasn't been able to find catches in pretty much any situation. Every fight they thought was positive has turned negative.
Oh my gosh!
That's scary.
Oh, I felt that one over here. Spirit tries to get out of this one. Somehow he started this fight with almost 10% HP. Looper is hit up, but he's got that. Zanya's finished. Dade gets poisoned to death with an extra hit coming in from Pawn. And these guys are just putting on a clinic with this composition right now. May or may not happen in game 2, but they will definitely have momentum here as they hit the Nexus turrets. 28.5 minutes into this game. Baron's up in 30 seconds if they even want to retreat back to get it, but I think they're going to put the nail in the coffin here.
It has been an absolutely exquisite performance here by Samsung White. Nobody actually expected a 26,000 gold lead at 28